I haven't done an anime convention review in a long time, and I wasn't sure if I was going to keep doing it because like the direction of my channel is changing a little bit. I want to talk more about like my art, but I had a very interesting experience at a tiny first year con in Utah, and I've been thinking a lot about it because it's like really interesting. So I'm going to let you in on the tea. Let's yap a bit. Let's talk about One Anime. So One Anime is a new convention in Utah that wants to be like the next big convention for Utah, which is really interesting because we now have a lot more conventions in Utah. If you don't know, the history of Utah conventions is actually really, really deep. So we used to have a convention called Anime Banzai, which started back in 2005, which is crazy. That's like 19 years ago at this point. 20 years ago now? 20 years ago now. Now, if you don't know what the fuck was going on in 2005, it was not the anime conventions that you know now. Anime conventions were completely different, and that's just because people were not as into anime. It was seen as kind of like this niche, fringe hobby and interest that not a lot of people were into, so the conventions were really the only spaces that these fans could come together. And because of this, Anime Banzai became a absolutely beloved convention in Utah. Again, it had a 19-year run. People came back every year and were extremely loyal to the convention. It was almost like there was tradition built into the convention because of how old it was. Things that happened at Anime Banzai didn't happen at other conventions. It was really, truly a unique experience that you cannot get now. I actually took a look at the Wikipedia page for this, and there was actually some pretty interesting stuff in the Wikipedia page. It's short, so I'm just going to read a couple things. So it was founded by Salt Lake Community College's End of the World Japanese Animation Club, which I'm pretty sure End of the World Club is like a reference to an anime. I know for sure that there's one in Revolutionary Girl Utena, but I don't know, there might be more. Their first year had 600 attendants, which they were only hoping for 300. So it was a pretty good year for their first year. They did it at Salt Lake Community College for the first 2 years. And then it looks like they moved over to Sheraton City Center Hotel until they moved to the Davis Convention Center. And the Davis Convention Center really is where the convention is known for. It's got that history of being Banzai. Now, it does have a little section about Anime Banzai being canceled in August 2024, but they do not give any information about this on the Wikipedia page. So I'm going to give you the information that I know about what happened, and I'm not a first-hand account. Don't take this as fact. This is just what I've heard and what I understand of the event. I am not like, I never went to Anime Banzai. I tried to do their Artist Alley multiple times. I got waitlisted multiple times. So I don't know firsthand. But I did see from people in my community what was going on. And so I know a little bit about what was going on. Allegedly, there was some issues in the past with embezzling of the funds. Anime Banzai was kind of like a 100% community-run convention, which was really interesting. So they had like a whole board of team that would like do all of the planning, handle the funds, handle the volunteers, etc., etc. And they held town hall meetings where anybody could hop in and like talk about Anime Banzai and the planning and the excitement around it, right? Well, like one day out of the blue, right before the con in 2024, they were like, hey guys, Anime Banzai's canceled. What do you mean Anime Banzai's canceled? That like came out of nowhere, right? And it did come out of nowhere. It really did. And fans were just seriously shocked and sad and really honestly hurt. And it turns out that like there is just absolute chaos and turmoil going behind the scenes with like the con heads and the staff. There's money issues. They can't afford the like hotel. They can't afford the convention center. They can't afford the guests. Like they're struggling. So they tried to keep Anime Banzai alive by like asking the other conventions, hey, do you want to take over Anime Banzai, by also taking on a ton of debt? Of course, nobody wanted to take on the amount of debt that Anime Banzai was asking for help with. So Anime Banzai quietly died in 2024. They did end up holding the convention, and it was DashCon level bad. Nobody was there. Nobody knew what they were doing. No security. There were 2 ball pits. It was not a good con. Aside the point, back to One Anime. Once the announcement post had been posted that Anime Banzai was no longer, another creator swooped in and said, hey, no worries guys, I'm gonna see if I can buy Banzai. I don't know what happened with that. They didn't buy Banzai. They started a whole new convention called One Anime. And listen, it was a rough start. It was a rough start for One Anime. Initially, I had really negative opinions about it. I don't know what order I want to talk about this in because there's a lot that went on right after it was announced. Clearly, people wanted Banzai to continue, so this was kind of like almost them saying like, hey, we want to step in and fill in Banzai's shoes. But like the first thing that they did was put out an AI logo and then proceed to tell like everybody that it was fine. It was just a placeholder, which the artist community in Utah is so tight knit, especially in the Artist Alley space. There's over 200 artists in a Discord that I created solely for the purpose of doing Artist Alley stuff. So if you fuck up on that level, it's going to be really hard to get our support. So we obviously voiced concerns, and it didn't really feel like we were like given any apology, if that makes sense. It was just kind of like, oh well, whatever, it's a placeholder, which honestly I do wish that they had kind of apologized to us, because anime literally is art. And if you are using AI, which is actively stealing jobs from people, actively stealing people's work, etc., for your logo for an anime convention, which is inherently about arts, guys, that's so disrespectful. So we never got an apology, but they did end up changing the logo. And I mean, I can't lie here. The logo is really nice. I like it. It's clean, it's crisp, it's new. Pretty good. I like it. However, I do not like the name One Anime, which was another concern that people had bringing up because it sounds pretty generic. I wrote a lot about this in my preparation script because I usually wing these things, but sometimes I like write down bullet points. This one, I seriously spent like 3 hours writing a review on it because I don't know, I had such weird feelings about this. I come from like a marketing and graphic design background, and I will say the name One Anime is so generic, and that is a problem for getting your event recognized. They don't have anything that sets it apart, so your main goal when you're doing these kinds of things is to get your event, your business, your whatever on the top page of Google. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that, but choosing the most generic name possible is like absolutely detrimental. You're going to have to do 2 times the work to get anybody to see your event, because when you look up One Anime on Google, unless you know what you're looking for, you are not going to get One Anime convention. I went ahead and went through and looked at Bing. It basically acts as like somebody else looking up something for the first time, because I don't use it. It doesn't have my data. It doesn't know what I'm looking for. And the first thing that comes up when you look up One Anime is one Japanese manga artist overview, manga early life. The next entry is Anime Planet, and then images of one anime. And it's mostly One Piece. Kind of a big problem, because you need search. Like if people are looking up new conventions, they need to be able to see that first. And you could make the argument that like Isekai and Anime Town, they each are kind of generic in their names, but it's Isekai Anime Con, and they market it Isekai Anime Con. Anime Town is Anime Town, Utah. They market it Anime Town, Utah. One Anime has consistently marketed itself One Anime. One Anime, One Anime, One Anime. All over the internet. So there's nothing that really diversifies itself and solidifies itself as a unique name and a unique search term to come up on Google. So if they did like their entire branding One Anime Convention, One Anime Con, or One Anime Utah, something that adds that third descriptor makes those 3 search terms more searchable. I mean, I don't feel like they have the knowledge to do this, which is interesting to me because they have investors. Another issue that people had with this con was that they had mentioned that they had investors, but they were being a little bit shady about who these investors were, which in my opinion is a big problem for the community when the last con that you're trying to take the seat of was shut down because there was money issues. I think people are right to have questions about where the money is coming from this con. Did you get it from a loan? Did you get it from an investor? What I saw was that there was a owner of a large cookie company, which in Utah means Crumble, because that's like the cookie company that's the biggest in Utah, that we know the most about. And I think that was kind of their attempt to get credibility here by implying that it was Crumble. I don't know if that was their intention, but it really did feel that way. But I gotta say, I don't think it's Crumble, because this con did not have Crumble money. They did have a couple other sponsors, and they do have a sponsor page that shows you who is sponsoring, but I don't think that there's a cookie company. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna record this so you guys can see it. Let's see. Get involved, events, schedule, gaming, sponsors. There you are, sponsors. Okay, let's see. Game Den, Lumos Youth Counseling. That's interesting. Cup Up, which, bro, I love Cup Up. And Miyazaki Premium Japanese Sushi and Steakhouse. No cookie company. Funny, but not funny haha. Funny weird. Speaking of the website, while I was doing my review, I like to go through the website and like look through all of the media and the marketing material and the communications that I received, because I want to like kind of form a clearer picture of the overall, because I'm not just giving a review based off of my feelings in the Artist Alley. It's like I want to give you a idea of the con as a whole, and I don't know, it's just kind of a unique retrospective. Now, we did already have the concerns about the AI, which were fixed, and they did add a rule to not have AI. I have a very strong suspicion that the website uses AI writing, and I don't want to have that suspicion, but girl, there are some red flags. There are some red flags, and, you know, I would feel very disappointed to find out that they said no AI art, but they're still okay with doing AI writing. Because writing's an art in itself, and there are people whose job it is to write material for your website so that way your website can get indexed well by Google. Like we were talking about before, you want your website to be the number one thing on Google, and there are people out there whose job it is to do that. And using AI does not help you there, because AI uses overly fluffy writing. It adds in a ton of extra junk that Google just sees as junk, and they don't want to put your website up further. And so when I was going through, I was reading, and just the sheer amount of extra fluffy words that were put into just their like our story section gave me red flags immediately. And that makes me really sad after the fact that I did this con and I didn't catch that soon enough. So I went through, and on this like little section of our story, there are, I think, 21 or 22 extra little fluffy descriptor words that AI just absolutely loves to throw in there. I'm going to go ahead and throw up this little section that I looked at with all of the highlighted sections where there is an extra descriptive word that's just meant to fluff it up and really is reminiscent of AI writing. I'm not accusing these guys of anything, but all I'm saying is it's a red flag, and that's not okay. If you're using AI writing, please stop. Please stop. And like, okay, also, if you have sponsors, like why would you be using AI writing? You should be able to afford copywriter, or at least a human to like actually help you with the website. I don't know. That's just me being sassy though. That's not me being like angry. Now, let's talk social media, because that's also kind of in the same world as the website. The social media was very interesting. I only looked at Instagram because I figured, based off of the way that the Instagram posts were made, it did look like they were reposts from Facebook, but they just weren't there, and the posts didn't have substance. They didn't like appeal to like new people. They appealed to kind of like an older demographic, just based off of what I've seen. I'm not going to get into depth about this because this is not a crash course on how to do social media, baby. Okay, and like this is like the first time that I have really ever seen them have like guests shouting out the event. I don't think I've seen that on a lot of other things, but they had very high quality videos of the guests shouting out the events, which I appreciated and is really helpful. But like, if you're not using hashtags and you paid your guests to do that, you're wasting money. Let's work on that. Let's take a course, okay? Then there were some pretty good guests. I was very happy with the guests. I just barely got into Dragon Ball Z, so I was happy to go get my little signature of Gohan, my baby boy. I haven't talked about this a lot at a lot of other events, but I think it's important to note that like your guests do bring in a certain audience. The guests from that like Dragon Ball Z people are bringing in are older people who are more into the classic anime, which is Banzai's crowd. I do think that these guys were specifically trying to bring in Banzai people. I think that's an issue because they weren't also trying to bring in younger people, and you can see that in different areas of this event. Like, number one, this event was on Halloween. That is a holiday that is mainly targeted at kids, teens, and young adults. And this convention was on Halloween Day during hours that they would have been in school because it was a Friday. And then it closed early. Or at least the artist alley closed early. It didn't completely close early. But those three things together deter younger people from coming to this convention. And also, the price of the ticket would deter a teenager from coming. And there's a lot more teenage fans now than there used to be. And so just deciding to completely cut them out of your marketing plan is not smart. I wanted to look at the prices of the tickets here. Okay, $30 for Friday and $20 for Saturday. And then $50 for the weekend, $89 for a premium pass, $189 for VIP, and kids 12 under get in free. First off, the economy's bad. We don't need to talk about it. But like a $30 ticket for a brand new con, even a $20 ticket for a brand new con is a big ask. $50 for both days, big ask, buddy. Big ask. And I understand that part of this is because they needed to cover the convention floor, which we'll talk about later. But that's a big ask, and that deters teenagers because teenagers don't have that kind of money, especially not in Utah right now. And so even if they did get in, they're not going to be spending money in the artist alley, which again, we'll talk about that later. I'm going to try and talk about these sequentially and in order as much as I can. Might get sidetracked. But I will say, the one thing that I really wish they would have done was market that the kids get in for free. Kids 12 and under get in for free. Because that is their literal goal, to get families in the door. And they did nothing with it. I saw nothing with it, okay? They needed to be like putting that, slap that on every single thing that they can. Every piece of media, every piece of marketing material. Kids get in free, because that matters. Not a lot of cons are doing that right now, and that is a big deal in the convention space, to have a safe place to go with your family where you could nerd out and have fun on a holiday. More, buddy, more. Please, more. We need to take a marketing class. We need to learn about the business side. Okay, so now that we've talked about like the actual price point of the event, and we've talked about the times of the event, let's talk about the turnout. As you can imagine, the timing, the economy, price of the tickets, all the things that I just mentioned meant that there was a thin crowd. Both days it was a pretty thin crowd. And it's okay. It's a first year con. That's okay. It'll happen. And like, you guys are still learning the marketing. You're still learning all of these other hats that you have to have. Like, running a whole convention is not just, hey, let's get all these people together. There's so much work that goes into it. And I can understand if maybe these guys were not prepared. I did hear something about there being some staff change at some point. And so I understand that this was not the easiest thing for them to do. And I'm not mad. But When you think about conventions and you're trying to make money into conventions, you have to think of every single guest that goes there has a limited amount of money that they can spend towards the event. They're already spending money at the door, and then they have to spend money at either the dealer's hall or to get an autograph or in the artist alley. So there is a limited pool of money that is available between all of the guests. And so in that way, we're kind of competing for this pool of money. I have a baby problem, maybe a medium-sized problem actually, about one of the events, because it did actually like directly negatively impact my experience and felt really unfair, which was the secondhand sale. Now, listen, I actually really like the idea of a secondhand sale, because who doesn't want to get like anime shit secondhand for $5? I got myself a Dark Magician Girl Funko Pop, which I've been eyeing for a while but haven't had the money to spend $29. I got her for $5, and I got a baby little Mew Funko Pop on the side. Like, I like the idea. The problem for me comes with the tables were free to the people who did that event, which means that aside from paying for their ticket, which I'm pretty sure this only happened on Friday, so aside from paying $30, they are making 100% profit off of whatever they sell there, but the artists and dealers have to pay for their own table. We have to pay for our own table, and we don't make money till we make enough money to cover table. So even in that hour, I knew somebody who made $120 just reselling. It took me 4 hours to cover my table. The tables were $160, a little bit higher than that. I'm just gonna say 160. It took me 4 hours to cover my table on the first day, and somebody's almost able to cover an entire table at a free table for an hour. I don't know. Something about that just really, really irked me. Made me feel like it was not fair. So, I don't know. If you're watching One Anime, I think it would be really fair for you guys to charge like $75 per table for this like secondhand sale, because then at least it would make me feel like maybe I shouldn't have bought my table and just gone to the secondhand sale, because I would have made probably more money there. Okay, now big problem. Big, massive, massive, massive problem, okay? This one you can't overlook. And I honestly might email One Anime about this. We're going to have a chat, okay? There were people who came into the event without badges. There were people who came into the event without badges. Now, I might be going a little bit crazy because TwitchCon just happened. If you don't know what happened at TwitchCon, someone was able to get behind security and basically assault a streamer in front of everybody, and not much was done about it. And it has me thinking a lot about the safety at these cons, mostly because the weapons check was all the way across the convention. So you're telling me that a guest who potentially has a weapon that needs to be checked, checks in, grabs their badge, is allowed to walk through the convention across the hall to go to weapons check? So they have a unidentified weapon walking through the event. We don't know if that's a real weapon or not, and I did see somebody with a gun. Thankfully, it did have an orange tip, so I knew it was not real. But you never know. Then that's scary to people. That's really scary to people to not know. That needs to be like the second thing that happens when you come into that event center. You check in, get your badge, weapons check immediately. You cannot be allowing these people to walk through the hall, and you cannot be allowing people to walk in without badges, because you don't know who's there. You don't know who's there, and you don't know if these people are crazy. Like, luckily, Utah is like generally a pretty safe community, but it only takes one mistake for something terrible to happen. And it was very disappointing. It was very disappointing to hear that people got in without badges, that the weapons check was through the event. And I understand, like, maybe they didn't have enough volunteers, but in my opinion, at minimum, you should be having that security check right there. You should be having security at the entrance. You should be having security, at least one person in front of every single door checking every single band that goes in there. And it just wasn't. It just wasn't there. And I don't want to feel unsafe at these conventions, and luckily I didn't feel unsafe, but after this TwitchCon incident, like, I think people really need to start putting a lot more thought into it, and this is something that I'm going to be adding to my convention reviews moving forward because it is that important. One Anime, you need to get together with your security staff and come up with a plan of action for if something bad happens. You need to have preventative measures. Security is about prevention. You need to have a prevention plan. You need to have people posted at places at certain times. This is something that you absolutely need to do. Absolutely. That's a non-negotiable for me. Okay. Let's calm down. Let's calm down. Let's talk about the actual, like, Artist Alley experience, because this is what I mostly was doing. There was a lot of free time. I was chit-chatting the entire time, but Artist Alley is, like, where my heart is, where my home is. We did have an Artist Alley head change, so that was very different. Usually they don't change right before con, but because of that, I'm giving a lot of grace and giving a lot of discounts. I'm more giving, like, I want to give more constructive criticism. I don't like tearing, like, these events down because I want them to succeed. When they succeed, I succeed. So that's why I'm going to focus a lot more on criticism here, even though it was, I wouldn't say necessarily disappointing. It just wasn't what we were hyped up to believe. One of the biggest gripes that I had was that I had absolutely zero time to set up my booth. There is 6 hours spread across both days, and if you are not familiar with Artist Alley setup, usually there is an entire day before the event for you to set up, and that's to accommodate people's lives. People work, people have school, and people like me who work night shifts need extra time to come in and work with their schedule. I was absolutely so lucky that I was able to get Thursday off last minute when it was otherwise non-negotiable because I was in the middle of training. I was able to get Thursday off, and so I was able to set up then, or partially set up then. But if I did not get that time, I would have had to have been awake for over 24 hours to even do the event because they did not provide us enough time. And that needs to change. You can't do that. And I understand a lot of the time it's a money thing. They don't want to pay for the hall for a longer amount of time. But this is something that people need more time for, especially people with big booths. Especially the dealer's hall. The dealer's hall have massive booths. They need time. We all need time. So please, like, One Anime, try and get more time for next year. I will be happy. In terms of communication, it was okay. We got 2 emails. One was a corrected email, and they were just placement emails. They didn't have any information about, like, the rules of the floor or what time the floors were open, which was really confusing and hard for me because, like, the website's so big and my internet is not great either at home or with my phone out in public. It's just not great. So I couldn't get the information. I constantly had to ask people around me, what time are we opening? What time are we closing? What time do we need to be here? If I had an email with that information, that would have been preferable. It's always great to just, like, have a one-stop shop information packet ready to go for the Artist Alley, for all the artists. And then, like, that also frees up the Artist Alley head to not be answering 100 million questions over and over and over and over again in different ways, and it keeps a consistent stream of information flowing. So I would have preferred more communication, and that's something that I think that they can work towards next year. I think that they need to have somebody that has a little bit more experience with running conventions, or at least more experience with the Artist Alley. Hit me up. No, I don't know. And setup went pretty well for me, other than the fact that I got pulled over the morning before and had to get some help setting up. But we're not going to talk about that. That's not what this event is. That's not what this review is for. So like I mentioned, the the 2 days were really slow, and that's really like demoralizing for artists. But I don't think that this is like necessarily 100% one anime's fault. Like I mentioned the other things that I thought, one anime could do better with, like marketing and their social media and all of those things. But like in terms of buying and spending, this is the same weekend where Snap got cut off. It's also the first of the month when people have like rent due. It's Halloween. People don't have a lot of money right now. There's a lot of different economic factors that play into this. But I will say it's not like I didn't make money. It just was slow. And that's a big change from when I started doing conventions back in 2020 in Utah. Things were a lot like more fast paced. People were more willing to buy, but now people are scared of the economy, so they're less willing to buy. Money moves slower. But it's not like it's not there. You have to be really conscious of the money pool, like I mentioned before, because there's not a lot of money, which creates competition, which creates stress. But I also think that we kind of priced out, like, the younger kids who aren't, like, the greatest at spending their money, but they do contribute to the economy of conventions as a whole. We priced out them. The families weren't going to be there because it's Halloween, and there were a lot of older anime fans here. Let's take a second to talk about these older anime fans. I love you guys. I affectionately refer to you guys as the Wea Boomers because you guys were like literally the first ones. You guys were the ones who were like, hey, this is cool, way before it was actually cool. And that's awesome. We love that for you guys. But your spending habits are just different. You guys are less willing to like buy things that are not very specific items from your classic anime that you loved. You're willing to spend more money on bigger items, but smaller items in the artist alley are not like your guys' jam. You're not like crazy big on the artist alley for the most part. Again, this is a generalization. You guys, everybody's different, okay? But this is my experience. This is like what I've seen overall. And that's hard on the artist alley because a lot of the people in artist alley now, there's a lot more niche interests in the artist alley that are not necessarily anime. There is a lot of newer anime, if there is anime at all, and there is still some classic anime stuff, but it is less frequent than it used to be, especially because we just had a huge boom in the anime fandom back in 2020 that is still going strong. But the anime scene has changed entirely, and you have seen that reflected in the artist alley. I had somebody come up and tell me that they stopped going to conventions for a while, and then this was their first one back, and they only recognized one person from the artist alley back when they started going to conventions, which is crazy. People change, like the rotation changes. It's a different world, and it moves fast. So having an older crowd or a crowd that doesn't work for you is really concerning and can make you lose money if you're not in the right niche. I've seen this firsthand with Retro Game Expo. If you don't fit into a niche, you're not going to do good. So having a wider audience is important to the artist alley, which is why we don't want to push out the kids, the teens, the young adults. We don't want to overcharge them. We don't want to run the con during hours that they're not going to be available. Those things are important. Like I said, there was money there. It's just the money pool is not very large and makes it really competitive. That's all I have to say about Artist Alley, but I do have a thought about the convention center. So it is held in Davis Convention Center, and they really wanted to like hit it home that this is Banzai. This is like Banzai vibes. We love Banzai by renting out the entire space. First year cons do not need Davis Convention Center. The entire thing. They do not need the entire thing for your first year con. And I think you guys really went too big, too fast by renting out the Davis Convention Center. And I think that with better organization, you guys could have even just rented out half of the Davis Convention Center. I went through and I thought about all the like little events and stuff that I went to and how I would reorganize them and save yourself some money for more marketing, for like more advertising, things that actually benefit you, rather than just being like, oh, we want this to be Banzai, here's the things that we need it to be Banzai. Like the physical space. Here's the physical space we need to be Banzai. So there was a haunted maze. I think the haunted maze should have gone where the quiet room was. The quiet room should have been moved back towards one of the panel rooms. Even like the lounge where you had all the snacks. That room could have been a good quiet room and just snacks and quiet room. That would have been great. That would have been fantastic. I think your main stage could have doubled up as the area for the random dance, so you didn't have to rent out like the terrace. Basically, I'm just trying to get like the entire left section squished into the right section so you guys have some more room. I think that the secondhand sale should have probably been in a panel room. The photo op area needed to be right at the front. Not only because like you want people to immediately like be taking pictures and sharing those photos online so there's more word of mouth, but like it was hidden. It was tucked away in a place where I didn't see it till the end of the night because it was all the way across the convention hall. It needs to be like right up there up front so people can go take a picture with their beautiful cosplay first thing that they do, and then they can go enjoy the rest of the event. Weapons check right up front. You know what, even right next to the photo op, if you wanted, there's a lot of space. You know, and even the photo op could probably go in like the outside section of where the artist alley was. I can't remember. I don't know all the names of the halls yet. Put the photo op like right as you're entering in the door that gets you into the like artist alley, or like the lobby before the artist alley. Put the haunted maze in there too. Use that hallway that's like right on the edge. Make it a haunted hallway. Like, that way people are not like going to these isolated rooms. It's like an event. You like walk through and you funnel through and you can do all of the things. I think the bouncy houses could have been put into like the further back area of the artist alley hall near the dealers and kind of near the guests, because I think you could better utilize the space that was there being used for that bouncy house as another panel room. And then again, you would have incentive for people to go into the artist alley because, hey, there's a bouncy house here. It's a bouncy castle. And there's a lot of space, which I appreciate in the artist alley, but there was a lot of space for the amount of people. And I think like year 2, year 3 should still be kind of small and a little bit crowded until you're ready to move. I think my general feelings about the con were that they wanted to be Banzai, but they got too big too fast and were really banking on the Banzai people to all just come. They're banking on them all to come without actually like doing work to establish and build an audience. They thought that they have this pre-existing audience that would just be totally head over heels to like spend their Halloween day at this convention. I like the idea that this is Holiday Matsuri, but for like Utah. I kind of like the idea that it's on Halloween, because like Halloween's a really fun holiday, but a lot of people told One Anime that it was a big concern, and they kind of just like waved it off, and I think that was to their detriment. So I was glad to hear that they are thinking about doing a new date for next year. I really hope that they do. I really hope that they're able to do a year 2, but I think you guys need to seriously like take a step back and really make this your own thing instead of trying to make it Banzai 2. I heard somebody call this the ghost of Banzai's past, and it really did feel that way. I really wanted this to be better for you guys because I want all the events to do well. When your events do well, I do well. And that's why I like giving these like constructive criticisms and being like real about it, because you guys need to hear what's good and what's bad and really like take that into account and work on it. And I know that One Anime can do this because I know for a fact that you guys have taken community feedback time and time again, because it has happened in my Artist Alley server. You guys have said you're going to do something, we didn't like it, and we gave suggestions on how to fix it, and you guys fixed it. I know you guys can do better, and I hope that this review was helpful for you guys specifically to know what you could have done better. But I also don't want to just sit here and say that I didn't have a good time, because the truth of the matter is I had a really good time. But I will put this with the caveat. I came to this event with the idea that I didn't really care if it went good or bad. I was okay with losing the money. As long as I got table back, I was okay, simply because I was getting a chance to vent next to one of my friends, and I knew I was going to have a good time anyway. I love the Artist Alley people. I'm friends with most of the Artist Alley people, okay? I'm going to have a good time in the Artist Alley anyway. And the lack of people being there actually lended for me to be able to experience the convention as like almost like an attendee, because I didn't have to stick at my booth the entire time, and I got to go play Dance Dance Revolution. I watched the rave. There was nobody at the rave, but I went in and I looked at it because it was too loud for my baby autistic ears. I went into the sensory room and I checked it out. It was nice. There was a freaking like oil diffuser. I took a picture in front of the like Halloween floaty thing. I went into the haunted maze, and honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, I was pretty freaking scared. Mostly because it was very unexpected, the amount of escalation. I was screaming my head off because, listen, when you're going down an empty hallway of little Halloween blow-up things, you turn the corner and, haha, skeleton with foot in mouth, and then turn around another corner and there's a demon staring into your eyes. Yeah, that's kind of spooky, buddy. Good job. I don't know how you did it. I don't know, it was because it was so sparse and I didn't know what to expect. I was expecting it to be cheesy, and there was actually spooky things in there. Good job, guys. That was funny. That was funny. I don't know if that was intentional to be that way, but it was funny. I watched the wrestling. I am really deep ingrained in the wrestling. I watched a panel. I got my first ever signature from a voice actor, which was freaking awesome. Like, I did have a really good time at the event. And it wasn't because of my vending experience. And so when I try and think about how I'm supposed to be rating this event, I have a hard time, because usually I try to give them like stars and points for things. But like technically there was a lot wrong with this convention. But I had such a good time, and I feel so bad that like these guys could potentially be discouraged not to do it again, that I feel like my experience is not going to be left without bias for this one. Here's what I'll do. I will rate it for my overall experience, and I will rate it for my Artist Alley experience. So my Artist Alley friends get kind of an idea of what it's like, and just for the con heads to get kind of my experience. So I think overall, my personal experience was like 4 out of 5 stars, just because I had fun. I got to chit chat with people. I got to look pretty art. I got to be silly. I had a good time. Artist Alley experience. Coco, I'm going to be really nice. This is not a reflection on you. This is just purely out of my experience compared to other conventions. It was probably 3.5 out of 5. There was a lot left to be desired in terms of communication, and I think that the event overall let the Artist Alley and the Dealers Hall down in many ways, mostly by not doing marketing properly, and also like allowing people to come in who don't have to pay for tables to compete for money that we are hopefully supposed to be gaining back. 4.5 stars for me, and 3.5 stars for the Artist Alley. I guess it's not the worst one I've ever done. But I think with all of these reviews that I've done, I think the one thing that I've left out was like just a reminder that like all conventions are risky at every angle. You don't know what's going to go wrong, whether that's like safety or with your money or with the attendees. You don't know what's going on, and you don't have a lot of control over that. And so if you're doing Artist Alley, you need to be willing to have the risk tolerance to go to an event that's not going to be good. You have to be okay with a convention not going the way that you want. And that's just part of being part of like the Artist Alley and the con experience in general. We've known of cons that have gone bad all the time. This con was not that bad, okay? If you had a bad time here, just use it as a data point. Use it as information on how you can do better next time, because you are the only person that you can control. I feel like I've lost my touch. I did this one kind of off the cuff. But that's all that I have to say about one anime. And one anime, if you have questions, you want to hit me up, you want to talk about this, I have an email submission form on my website, zorith.art. So yeah, I look forward to hearing about everybody else's experience. I want to hear what people had experience with at this con. So leave me a comment. Tell me what your rating is. And do not forget to subscribe and like and whatever you need to do for the algorithm to like this.